No parent wants to have a conversation with their children about racism. And all of us are wondering when is the right age and when is the right time and how do I go about it? That is something that we want to protect our kids from.
Once upon a time, people believed that a world where everyone was equal was impossible. They said that history was too empty of hope, people too full of hate. And then something terrible happened. An event that opened many more eyes and closed more fists. People from all over the planet were speaking up and caring about fixing the world's horrible problems. Out of evil, something good had begun to grow. A perfect moment for a little extra help from a few special people. Mijn naam is Ikenna Azuike en ik ben programmamaker. Dit is mijn vrouw Mette en mijn kinderen Suki en Kobe. Net als veel ouders vinden Mette en ik het moeilijk om over racisme te praten met onze kinderen. What do the people look like?
Als ons.
And what do we look like, Kobe?
Bruin.
Bruin? Is Suki bruin?
Yep.
What color is Suki then?
Wit. Nou, ik ben niet helemaal wit hoor. Ik ben niet zo wit.
And what about mama? What color is mama?
White, die is groen.
Mijn kinderen zien dus ook kleur. Maar hoe moeten we het gesprek verder met ze voeren om bij te dragen aan een wereld zonder racisme? Hoe pak je dat aan?
Kijk, het liefst wil je het gewoon niet benoemen, maar ik heb geleerd dat dat juist helemaal niet goed is. Of dat het niet werkt, want de wereld is zoals die is. Dus ik denk wel dat je het moet gaan uitleggen dat het er nou eenmaal is. Dat racisme er eenmaal is. Je moet ook op een gegeven moment beslissen van wat ga je erover vertellen.
Maar ja.
Ja.
Ik denk gewoon beetje bij beetje.
Ja.
Droppen into the conversation. Op een kindvriendelijke manier. Kleur bestaat. Tja, en ik heb meteen de neiging om precies te zeggen wat mijn vader zei tegen mij. Gewoon, jongen, je moet echt harder werken dan andere mensen. 2 keer zo hard. En eigenlijk heb ik de neiging nu om dat tegen dat donkere jongetje te zeggen.
Ja, dat moet je niet doen.
Het is zo'n belasting voor iemand, vooral op zo'n jonge leeftijd.
Ja.
Goed, waar moet ik beginnen? En wie heeft de blauwdruk van onze post-racistische planeet? Het boek, waar ik mijn kinderen uit voorlees, heeft antwoorden. Oké, ready? Want dit is echt een beetje spannend. Avoiding uncomfortable conversations. Hiding from the truth. Humans were very good at keeping their real feelings bottled up and trapped inside their bodies. But everything changed when a superhero with an amazing ability landed on Earth. The name of this intergalactic body expert? Camille Barton, the trauma extractor.
Don't get me wrong, I think that human beings deserve complete rights for dignity and good quality of living and free from violence and harm, but...
Om met onze kinderen te kunnen praten over racisme, moeten we als ouders misschien eerst bij onszelf beginnen. Mette en ik doen mee met de workshop Embodied Social Change van Camille Barton. Zij leert mensen om gevoelens als ongemak, verdriet en woede aan te gaan. Wat gebeurt er in ons lichaam wanneer we praten over racisme?
Today is going to be an exploration. It's by no means going to be a solution to ending racism in this moment. But hopefully it will be an opening to have a little bit more clarity about how some of this stuff relates to your body and the sensations that you feel, what you're maybe carrying around with you, and how that relates to how you interact with other people. With kind of newer research in neuroscience that we're seeing around trauma and post-traumatic stress disorder, there's a lot more awareness around what's happening in the brain and the body. When we remember traumatic experiences, it's kind of as if the body is reliving it in real time in terms of the reactions that our nervous system has. So even rehashing a memory or having a conversation with someone about a hurtful thing that happened around racism, we will experience many of those same feelings and emotions in our body. So as much as we might like to pretend that we can just have intellectual, sporting conversation, for people that actually live those realities and have that trauma, it's a visceral re-experiencing that's taking place.
I haven't been able to talk about it at home with my parents because they told me to just, this is it, this is reality, just deal with it. It's better not to fight against it because it's only gonna make worse. So,
what do we need in place to achieve a post-racist future?
I think there's a few components. One, it's really important for people who've been targeted by racism to have access to healing. By focusing on the body and on embodied trauma from racism, we'll be able to support people who've been targeted by it. And then for white people, I think focusing on the body and having this analysis will allow them to be more aware of when guilt and shame is arising and when they may be being reactive rather than responsive.
Hoe ongemakkelijk ook, het is me duidelijk dat ik juist moet praten over racisme. A long time ago, people believed that ignoring something would make it go away. They told their children fairy tales of equality, insisting that differences in skin color didn't matter. Then one day, from a galaxy far, far away, a superhero emerged with an extraordinary gift for all Earthlings. This is Laila Saad and her superpower of passing on knowledge. What would you say your post-racist future looks like?
We're human beings. We're made of darkness and of light. We have these great superpowers, right, that we can use to help and heal the world. And I think a post-racist future is one in which we recognize that all of us are complex human beings, that there's things that we know and we don't know, that there's parts of us that are compassionate and kind, and there's parts of us that are selfish and mean, and we don't make other people wrong for being whole human beings. So I see this post-racist future as one where we reawaken our humanity and reconnect with each other and reconnect to something bigger. Being a good ancestor gives my life meaning. It gives it purpose and direction because you recognize that your being here in the world will impact people for generations to come. That's how important you are, that you will impact people for generations to come. And we live, kind of speaking more like cosmically now, we live with the repercussions of that. We will carry the repercussions of that. And I just want that to be something that's more good than bad. We're all here to play our part in the great story of humanity. We saw some of that after George Floyd's murder. People who'd never protested before, protesting. People who'd never read anti-racism books before, purchasing those books, reading them. We've seen like a small thing of what that could look like, but we need that sustained. You know, we don't need it just for the summer, right? Until the news cycle moves on. We need it sustained over time. The idea of being a good ancestor is recognizing that you have a responsibility. Because when we're not connected to one another, that's when it's okay to treat people in the way that we treat them. That's when it's okay for the violence to take place that does.
De wereld beter achterlaten voor de generaties na mij. Daar komt zoveel meer bij kijken dan het voeren van een gesprek. Leren hoe ik dat moet doen met mijn kinderen betekent leren over mezelf. Maar vooral ook leren hoe we weer echt in contact komen met elkaar.
And as you look at the person in front of you, I'd like you to become aware that this person has the desire to be loved, seen, and accepted. Might feel a little bit weird. If you feel the need to laugh, that's totally okay. Just allow that to flow. As you look at this person in front of you, I'd like you to bring into your awareness that in their life, they will have experienced some form of suffering, loss, or oppression. And just breathe with that for a few moments. And as you take in this person in front of you, I'd like you to bring into your awareness that they have the power to heal intergenerational trauma and create positive social change in the world. Again. There's space if anyone wants to share. You said intense, but yeah, anything that came up during that.
It makes me aware how much that most of the time you don't look at persons. Most of the time.
I think a lot of people have never been looked at like that before.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that have never been looked at like that before, ever, I think.
I think I was scared by the first interaction, which was very intense. And then I kind of closed off. It was once believed that human brains were limited to just 3 layers: cerebrum, cerebellum, and brainstem. Until an ingenious scientist created a 4th, an exocortex, enabling us to think freely, to see people for who they really are. A mind-bending, impossible invention. Behold, scientist Senai Gabriab and his superhuman ability, building the megamind.
Ik ben ervan overtuigd dat een toekomst zonder ongelijkheid niet mogelijk is zonder kunstmatige intelligentie. We hebben extra hulp nodig om uit onze eigen menselijke tekortkomingen te komen. Ik denk dat we vooral denken in de categorieën, in de labels die wij van kinds af aan hebben meegekregen, of die we als volwassenen tot ons krijgen via media, sociaal media, traditioneel media. Dat bepaalt in hele hoge mate hoe wij de wereld zien, hoe wij de wereld categoriseren, hoe we het ordenen, hoe we met elkaar omgaan. Dus in die zin zitten we wel een beetje gevangen in de kaders waarin we opgroeien en leven. En het zou mooi zijn als we die kaders kunnen openbreken met behulp van technologie.
En hoe zouden we dat met technologie kunnen doen?
De Universiteit van Stanford heeft samen met de Zwitserse overheid een algoritme ontwikkeld die gebruikt wordt om vluchtelingen te plaatsen op plekken waar de vluchteling zelf er wat aan heeft en de omgeving er ook wat aan heeft. Waarbij beide profiteren van elkaar. Waardoor er situaties ontstaan dat vluchtelingen daar veel makkelijker in de arbeidsmarkt stromen of het onderwijs ingaan. Wij zeggen heel graag mensen te willen zien en te beoordelen op basis van de eigen talenten of op basis van individueel gedrag. Maar het lukt ons niet om dat te doen. We zien heel snel de groep waartoe we die individu toerekenen. Het lukt ons niet omdat ons brein ons elke keer terugbrengt in onze categorieën. Dus voor statushouders is zo'n algoritme is een enorm belangrijk middel om hen te helpen ergens terecht te komen waarin ze zichzelf kunnen ontplooien, maar waarin ze ook van nut kunnen zijn voor de omgeving. De grootste techbedrijven, zoals de Googles en de Facebooks en de Amazons, de machtige bedrijven, dat zijn bedrijven waar voornamelijk jonge witte mannen werken. Dat is helemaal niet erg, maar als het alleen maar jonge witte mannen, of voornamelijk jonge witte mannen zijn, dan bestaat de kans dat je technologie ontwikkelt die vooral die jonge witte mannen representeert en dient. Zelflerende systemen, zoals machines, leren op basis van data. Als wij mensen, machines, voeden met de data die wij zelf collecteren, of met de categorieën waar wij zelf gebruik van maken, dan zullen machines de wereld beginnen te zien zoals wij dat zien. Er zijn een aantal hele duidelijke voorbeelden van kunstmatige intelligentie waarmee zwarte mensen worden benadeeld. Als zwart persoon heb je 5% meer kans om aangereden te worden door een zelfrijdende auto dan als een witte persoon. Een ander voorbeeld is gezichtsherkenning. Gezichtsherkenningstechnologieën identificeren zwarte en Aziatische personen tot 100 keer minder goed als witte personen. En dat kan consequenties hebben als politiemachten gezichtsherkenningstechnologieën gebruiken. Aan de ene kant is dit natuurlijk negatief, dat dit wordt geconstateerd. Tegelijkertijd, kunstmatige intelligentie leidt niet per se zelf tot ongelijkheid. Het legt ongelijkheid in de maatschappij bloot. Als we blootleggen waar het fout gaat, kunnen we daar vervolgens oplossingen voor bieden. En daarom is het ontzettend belangrijk dat als technologie wordt ontwikkeld, dat dat gedaan wordt door mensen met diverse achtergronden, diverse expertise, zodat je technologie op een inclusieve manier kunt ontwikkelen. Er zijn 2 miljard jongeren op aarde. Als die jongeren leren wat algoritmisch denken is, of zelf algoritmes kunnen maken, dan ontstaat er een hele rijkdom aan creatief jonge mensen. Dat is waar wij allen in zouden moeten investeren.
Words conjure images which amaze and astonish us. They can be used to change minds, create movements, to build a better world. Something that our next superhero kept on imagining, until it became reality. This is the story of interstellar astronaut Musa Okwonga and his superpower of imagination.
Imagination is incredibly important to me. It's why I do all the work that I do. I believe that we're in a time where ideas, for this brief moment in time, are the currency, the most important currency. You look at Greta Thunberg and the work she's done in relation to climate change and how ideas have gone around the world faster than billionaires could stop them. So for me, every day I'm trying to imagine a better future. And it's no coincidence that so many of my friends, my black friends, are writing sci-fi novels because we're all trying to imagine better futures.
Musa Okwonga is schrijver, dichter en journalist voor kranten als The New York Times en The Guardian. Zijn wapen in de strijd tegen ongelijkheid en racisme is verbeeldingskracht.
I would say that not so much the role of artists, but the opportunity of artists is to help us all imagine the unimaginable in a positive way. When we talk about a post-racist world, many will say, oh, that's utopia, but I think the artists have the opportunity and the creativity to show us what that looks like. A post-racist future. So let's say in the future that there is a massive flood and I have to build an anti-racist city. The first thing I do would assemble a planning committee composed of people from a variety of communities. Trans communities, people of colour, trans people of colour, people with disabilities. You build a society where there was greater access to healthcare, to energy, to counselling, to therapy. You design a working week where people got more time to spend with their children and also just on their own spare time, their cultural pursuits. You design a universal basic income. I think you'd also look at play. You'd look at just fun for the sake of fun. You'd have large open spaces where people could freely mingle because freedom of movement is radical. If we look at a world where borders are always closing, let's open every border that a city has. Yeah, that's my utopia. That's where I'd start. And some might say to me, oh, but you haven't mentioned racism once. I said, well, here's the thing. In a post-racist society, the best ideas come from everyone regardless of their background. And if you get rid of racism, you start listening to everyone who's already got the solutions, but who's not being listened to and who's not getting the investment. I call it a utopia, not because it won't happen, but because I think it's a vision that we have to be aiming towards. I mean, if we're being honest, the utopia for some people was white supremacy and the enslavement of black people, and that utopia happened for hundreds of years. Apartheid was the utopia for some people. They imagined it and it happened. The utopia I imagine in a post-racist society is one where none of this exists. That's just as radical a vision in its own way as the enslavement of human beings. It's just as radical in its own way and fundamental, a change to society in its own way, as apartheid was. My radical imagination is one where none of that exists ever again. And I think it's really powerful to teach children to always speak up. It doesn't mean having to go on marches. It means in a dinner table, with a loved one, in a relationship, on a date, and someone says something discriminatory about someone, you're like, actually, I'm not cool with that. I don't think we judge people just because of where they're from. We judge them according to their character. Just that one message at a very early age, you'll change the world in a few years if you teach them that.
To speak up.
To speak up.
I'm interested in creating a world where our laws are an extension of what we believe to be morally just and right, which comes from being more in tune with our own internal compass, our own sense of believing that all humans should be treated with care and compassion and empathy.
We need policies changed, we need laws changed, we need institutions changed, but if the people don't change, the people who walk out the policies, the people who are supposed to follow the laws, if they don't change, then things stay the same. This is an ongoing process, an ongoing practice, an ongoing journey. We're taking the baton from the ancestors who came before us, who did the same, walking with it on this path now while we're here so that we can pass it on when we're gone.
If there are people watching this who think, okay, what can I do next? How can I bring about a post-racist society? I'll say this. You can start right now. You'll probably have access to Google, so you can find so many resources from the world's greatest thinkers on race, on where to go next. So I would say read, read, read. Keep learning, keep intervening, because it's not just the big marches, the big protests. It's about having the difficult conversations with those relatives and those work colleagues that you've been avoiding, because we've all been avoiding them. People say they don't see racism. They do see it. They're just afraid to speak up about it. So I would say stop being afraid. I'd also say you're going to get stuff wrong, and that's okay. Just as if you're raising kids, you'll have a day where, you know what, I wasn't my best today, and that's okay. Keep going. Compassionate people, kind people are not discouraged. Anti-racism is a lifetime of caring. That is a beautiful thing. And who wants to be discouraged from a lifetime of caring? That's a terrible thing. So keep learning, keep caring, keep loving, and keep pushing.
Everyone had worked very, very hard to make their dream a reality. A new era could begin. Our post-racist era is finally here.